This stamp was mailed a day before it existed. A tiny profile of a Greek god, printed onto paper barely bigger than your finger, would go on to be cut apart with kitchen scissors, faked by criminals, hunted by kings, and studied so obsessively that entire books exist just to classify its color variations. For 25 years, the same 9 bronze plates, carved in Paris and never replaced, quietly produced every single one of them. And somewhere in that run, a handful of mistakes slipped through. Mistakes that collectors are still chasing today. But the strangest part of this story isn't the stamp itself, it's the letter that was mailed with it, a full day before the stamp officially existed. Why this tiny piece of paper still matters. Most people glance past old stamps. To them, it's just paper. But to collectors, historians, and investors, the first stamp of Greece is something closer to a founding document. Greece had only been an independent kingdom for a few decades when this stamp appeared. Before it, the country's mail moved on trust, cash payments, and improvisation. This small printed image was proof that a young nation could run a modern postal system, the same kind Britain, France, and the German states were building at the time. That's part of why collectors care so much. It isn't just old paper, it's the birth certificate of an entire postal identity, printed at a moment when Greece was still proving itself on the world stage. And because of how it was made, by hand, on aging equipment, over more than 2 decades, no 2 sheets are quite the same. That inconsistency, which would have been a manufacturing headache in 1861, is exactly what makes this stamp an obsession in 2026. A god chosen to deliver the mail. The story starts not in Athens, but in Paris. In 1860, Greek officials needed a design for the country's first official postage stamps. Rather than start from nothing, they turned to a firm already trusted with French stamp production and to a French engraver named Albert Barre, whose own father, Jacques-Jean Barre, had engraved France's first postage stamps back in 1849. Stamp making, quite literally, ran in the family. Barre based his new design on an existing French template, the Ceres stamp, framed in a circle inside a rectangle. But instead of the Roman goddess of harvest, he engraved a different face into that circle, Hermes, the Greek god of travel, trade, and messages, the deity whose job, mythologically speaking, was to carry words between worlds. For a stamp meant to carry letters across an entire kingdom, there was no more fitting choice. The finished design was struck onto bronze printing plates, each holding 150 individual stamp images. 7 values were prepared, from a modest 1 lepton up to a hefty 80 lepta, and on October 1st, 1861, Greece's first postage stamps went on public sale. They were printed the old-fashioned way, typography, on sheets with no perforations at all. Post office clerks separated each stamp from its neighbours using scissors, which meant that from the very first day, some stamps were cut a little too close, clipping into the design, a flaw that ironically would later help collectors tell early printings apart from later ones. But before we get to the collecting side of this story, there's something stranger waiting, something that happened before the stamp was even supposed to exist. The letter that shouldn't exist. Here's the detail that turns philatelists into detectives. One of the most treasured items in all of Greek postal history is a cover, an envelope, postmarked and sent on September 30th, 1861, 1 full day before the Large Hermes Head was officially released. Think about that. A stamp that, according to the official record, did not yet exist for public use, somehow travelled through the mail a day early. That single envelope is considered one of the most important surviving artifacts in Greek philately, proof that the real story of a stamp's birth is rarely as clean as the date printed in a history book. And the surprises didn't stop at the release date. Almost immediately, demand outpaced supply. The 20 lepta value, the denomination used for the most common domestic letter rate, sold out fast. So fast that Greek printers in Athens had to rush out a stopgap replacement, hurriedly copying the Paris design using local equipment. Collectors today call this the provisional printing, and it's instantly recognizable to trained eyes as rougher, less refined than the polished Paris original. It was never meant to last. It was meant to buy time. And that urgency, born from a shortage nobody planned for, is baked permanently into the surviving stamps. There's another detail almost no casual observer notices. Flip one of these stamps over. On the back of most values, you'll find a small printed number, the exact value of the stamp, printed again, upside down to the design, in tiny digits. This wasn't decoration, it was a security measure, meant to make forgery harder, and to help postal clerks confirm a stamp's value at a glance. It's a feature almost unique in world philately, and it would soon become one of the single most important tools collectors use to classify and date each printing. But forgery wasn't just a theoretical risk. It happened, and it happened for money, not history. When rarity becomes a battlefield, 2 decades into the stamp's life, in 1881, someone in Greece tried to cheat the postal system directly. A crude fake of the 20 lepta stamp began circulating, sold to unsuspecting buyers in the towns of Syros and Agia Anna, meant to be used and accepted as real postage. It didn't take long for postal workers to spot the difference. The forger was caught and arrested, and the fake stock was seized and destroyed. But a small number of these forged stamps had already slipped into private hands before the operation collapsed. Those surviving forgeries are, today, collectible in their own strange way, fakes that are now valuable precisely because so few escape destruction. That's the paradox at the heart of this entire stamp series. Authenticity, imperfection, and scarcity are tangled together in ways that took collectors generations to untangle. Because remember, the same 9 bronze plates ran continuously for over 20 years, from 1861 until 1882. They were never swapped out, never replaced. Over that time, paper stock changed, ink batches changed, including a shift toward newer synthetic dyes for richer, more vibrant colors. Plateware left subtle scratches and flaws that shifted from year to year. Nobody in 1861 was thinking about future collectors. Printings were made simply as needed, whenever supply ran low, with whatever paper and ink happened to be on hand. The result, discovered only decades later by dedicated researchers, is a staggering number of shade variations, paper types, and plate position quirks, differences invisible to a casual buyer, but instantly meaningful to a specialist. Entire modern books exist purely to help collectors tell one printing from another using those tiny control numbers on the back, the paper texture, and the precise tone of ink. And because there was never an official perforation, every single stamp was separated by hand with scissors. Finding an example with wide, even margins on all 4 sides is its own kind of miracle. Most surviving stamps show at least some trace of that hurried, careless cut. The hunt that never really ends. This is where the story becomes less about ink and paper and more about people. Specialist auction houses, firms in Europe that deal almost exclusively in classic Greek philately, regularly unearth fresh material from old estates and long-forgotten albums, unused blocks, complete sheets, and correspondence still bearing these stamps from letters mailed across the Mediterranean in the 1860s. Every so often, a previously unrecorded shade or a startling plate floor surfaces, and specialist researchers scramble to reclassify it. There is also a quieter, more human layer to this hunt. Because Greece had no postal agreements with many foreign countries when these stamps were issued, letters arriving from abroad were not automatically considered paid. Postal clerks would tax the incoming letter and apply Large Hermes Head stamps on arrival to cover the due amount. That means some of the most desirable surviving items today are not stamps at all. They are entire envelopes, carrying a small paper trail of a 19th century international relationship, a letter that began its journey in France or Italy and ended it stamped by a Greek postal clerk balancing the books. Those covers, especially rare combinations like Greek postage sharing an envelope with a foreign country's own stamps, are some of the most prized objects in the entire hobby. Collectors do not just want the stamp, they want the story stitched onto the paper around it. What still draws collectors back? Even after more than a century and a half, the Large Hermes Head hasn't lost its pull. Specialist Greek philatelic auctions still regularly feature fresh lots from this series, including rare color varieties, uncut blocks, forged stamps that escape destruction, and covers documenting mail routes long since vanished. Serious collectors treat top examples with the same reverence others reserve for fine art, because in a very real sense, that's what these are, hand-engraved artwork, mass-produced under imperfect conditions, filtered by a century and a half of loss, damage, and survival. What began as a practical solution to a young kingdom's postal needs became something its creators could never have predicted, a puzzle so intricate that specialists are still publishing new research on it today, more than 160 years after Albert Barre first carved Hermes' profile into a sheet of bronze. And that, in the end, is the real legacy of Greece's first stamp. Not just that it carried letters across a nation, but that it's still, after all this time, carrying collectors down a rabbit hole they never quite climb out of.